Okay. So for the present perfect, we have just discussed that it'll be using has or have and whatever the past participle is of a specific verb. Any questions that you use are going to be indicated by inverting the subject and has have. And then any negatives are going to be made with just adding the word not. Okay, so for example, the statement, you have seen that movie many times, right? The question, have you seen? So the have now moves in front of the subject. Have you seen that movie? And the negative, you have not seen that movie many times. Okay.
Okay.
So this can definitely be for accomplishments, any changes that have taken place over, whatever the span of time is or experiences. And so, just on your piece of paper, right underneath the subject verb agreement section where you just wrote your sentences, you can actually just think of something you accomplished or a major change you experienced and write a few sentences to express that, right? So I have been to New York. I have been published. I have traveled to certain, whatever the place may be. Maybe like two sentences. You can ask a question, you can do a negative, or you can make a statement.
Okay. Is it like a formal thing to do when we're speaking sometimes?
I think that we all speak like this at some point or another, depending on what the context is. If you're someone who uses a lot of slang, then you probably would not speak like this, but it's more appropriate. If I'm talking about, maybe even if I'm talking in an interview and I say something like, you know, I have traveled to so and so, or I have been published this many times, or
Mm,
at a previous job, I have been exposed to professional development workshops about educational leadership or something like that. I would speak in that way. I wouldn't, try to shorten the sentence. I wouldn't try to use a lot of, laid back language. I would try to be as specific as possible.
okay. Is it normal to speak like this here, right? In New York
Here in New York,
and here in the USA?
I would say so. Yeah. But then again, it's like, in the US, we all come from everywhere, so there's some people who, their parents came from other countries in Europe, South America, Africa, the Caribbean, wherever. And so
Mhm.
you kind of bring your languages, your dialects, and it becomes a part of your language. But I think that you should speak as proper as you can. If you're, in America for job interviews, um, if you're trying to teach somewhere that's not here, really definitely be as specific as proper as you can because you'll be teaching other people how to speak the language.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I had to do the complete. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, so
Uh,
just one accomplishment.
okay.
I have not had any criminal charges so far. That's a good sentence.
Got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Okay. So independent and dependent clauses are very interesting. And I always love to explain these in terms of, adults and children, right? So if you are independent of your parents, you don't need any help, you don't need any support, you are completely free to exist by yourself. Versus Dependent clauses, right? Dependent clauses are like dependents or children. They really need a lot of support. They cannot stand alone. They cannot be there by themselves. And so if you look at the white example, right? Faith, hope, and trust are important values. That is a complete sentence. We have our subject and we have our predicate, okay? I love to play cards. We have our subject and we have our predicate. It's a full sentence. And the same thing with those next two examples. Yesenia squirmed when her little sister tickled her feet, and Jack jumped.
What
Okay.
does sperm mean? What does?
Squirmed is like, you know, when someone tickles you, you're just like, oh my God, stop tickling me, stop tickling me.
Mm.
Yeah. So you're kind of just like, you know, you're trying to get away. You know, you're trying to get away. Yeah. So those would be complete sentences or independent clauses. As opposed to the clauses in yellow. Okay. So if you have without you cannot stand by itself. You know, first off, I'm trying to figure out without you what? You know, there's a lot of questions there. So then you would just have to add more information next to it. So without you, the grass grows under my feet, right? It's being revised. Or after the party, right? If you just had a sentence, and I've had a lot of students who, you know, they kind of just write after the party, period. And they'll go to the next sentence. And I'm just like, okay, well, after the party, what? You know, did we go home? Did we go to another party? Did we go out to eat? You know, what happened? All these questions are, you know, rising up in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
After the party, the crowd went home and I went to sleep. And then even though she loves paragliding, right, that's an introductory statement. And if you notice the word even though, that is a subordinating conjunction. That means, you know, a lot of times that will start the sentence. And if you start with even though, it just logically makes sense that I'm going to tell you the other side of the even though, right? Like even though I love chips, comma, I feel soda is the best, you know, the best snack. Or even though she loves paragliding, the first time she jumped off a hill, she was terrified, right? And so anytime you begin with a subordinating conjunction, like even though, although, those words just let you know there is something else coming. Okay, although I am satisfied with, you know, an extended summer because of the coronavirus, comma, I would love to travel again, period.
Mm.
Right? Okay. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So then you can go to your grammar handout, and I believe there's a 2-section question.
Mm-hmm.
So right underneath where it says, it's part 2, number 2, and it's multiple choice.
Okay.
Okay.
I put the which of the following responses is an independent clause, and I said the A, but I'm not sure about the B.
Okay,
Even
what
though
it,
she wished for spring. I think that's
can you
a
read,
dependent one, but I'm not sure.
can you read A?
Yes, the alls and I don't know the second word, but and bowls.
Okay.
Bowls?
Voles, yes, those little mice
Oh, little mice. Okay.
looking animals.
Thank you. The owls and bowls are out in nature tonight. That's independence clause.
Yes, that's a one complete sentence.
Mm-hmm.
All those other examples would be dependent clauses. They would need more work. They would need to have another full sentence added, or, you know, a lot of times Sometimes a dependent clause just is missing certain words, like it might be missing a subject, it might be missing the verb, or there might be just some issues within the sentence that just need, a little bit more assistance to work.
Mm.
Okay. And then what about the next one? You could choose two different dependent clauses.
Depending. It's a write your own independent clause.
I think that was the one, the multiple choice one.
Oh, I did a different. I put without the sun, the planet will die.
Oh, that is a great sentence. Without the sun, comma, the sun will die.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Alrighty. So we can actually double back if you want to do the dependent clause maybe a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So types of sentences, there are four different types of sentences, and then after this we'll go into, the simple, compound, complex, and then compound complex sentences. But if we're thinking about, the whole purpose of a sentence, declarative sentences really are just making a statement, right? There really isn't a lot of room for confusion. You're just saying something. So that might be like the child walked to the store or the plant fell on the ground. You're just making a statement. When you have an interrogatory sentence, that is a sentence that is asking a question. And if you look at the roots in this, right, the first part of this, looks like interrogate. So you can just imagine, let's say you have one of those really nosy friends who they always have to know something, and not in a kind way, but they're like asking you all of these questions like, well, what did you do yesterday? And, well, where were you? Or parents who, like to kind of ask a lot of questions if their child is somewhere they're not supposed to be. Well, whose house were you at last night? Where did you go? So it's always just asking a question. It doesn't have to be an aggressive question, but it's always asking a question. And then exclamatory sentences are used to express emotion. And in those kinds of sentences, your interjections would definitely be appropriate. So you could be like, or you could say, hey, I'm walking here. And that's especially true if you are somewhere where pedestrians are not respected at all. Anything that you are exclaiming, you know. And then imperative sentences give orders, instructions, or make requests. So I'm sure a lot of parents love this, just sit down and be quiet, or wash the dishes, anything where you're giving someone an order, or you could make it, make a request like, please clean your room today or something of that nature. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.